Hello everyone. Today we shall learn how to construct different types of portfolios in Excel using a financial time series data. We have data on the three green indexes from the world. We have data on Asia Pacific market, the US market and the European market. The monthly data starts from January 2004 and it extends until July 2019. We have computed the return series using the first formula, which says that returns are proportionate changes in the prices. There is an alternative formula which states that returns are given by log of PT by PT minus 1. This formula may also be used. For the construction of the portfolio, we shall start from the variance-covariance matrix. So we use covariance from the data analysis. We input the entire data set as our input range. Our data set has labels in the first row, and then we specify the target cell or the output cell. This is the variance-covariance matrix. Now since this matrix is symmetric, so we are getting only the lower portion of the This is the complete variance-covariance matrix. To construct the portfolios, we shall start by assigning weights to the different assets that we have here. We have three assets here. To start with, we assume that all the three assets will be given equal weights, so that each asset will be getting a weight of 1/3. This cell shows the sum of all the weights, which is always equal to 1. But for our computational purposes, this cell should have a formula in it. We should not enter any value in this particular cell. Now we shall be computing the portfolio risk and portfolio return. This set of portfolio risk and return will be associated with the equally weighted portfolio, where all the assets are given equal weights. The formula for computing portfolio risk is given here. It is given by the product of the three matrices: the transpose of the weight matrix, the variance-covariance matrix, and the weight matrix itself. So accordingly, we make use of the MMULT and the transpose formula and construct the portfolio risk accordingly. So the portfolio risk is computed. Now we shall be computing the portfolio return for this equally weighted portfolio. the portfolio return is given by the product of the return matrix and the weight matrix. Accordingly, we use the MMULT function once again to compute the portfolio return for this equally weighted portfolio. So the risk and the return have been computed for the equally weighted portfolio. We shall be saving this case as case 1 or the first case. We shall be computing or constructing other portfolios also, and then finally a comparison will be made among the different portfolios. Now in the second case, we shall construct a portfolio which will minimize the risk of the portfolio. So that is the minimum variance portfolio. So the target sale is the risk. We are minimizing it. Our choice variables are the weights. So we are changing the weight sales to solve the problem. We have only one constant here, namely the sum of all the weights which is given in this sale is exactly equal to 1. So that is the only constant here. Before we solve it, we may consider some other options. There is one option which states that you may make all the weights to be non-negative. If you do so, then you are actually putting restriction on the short selling. To start with, I will not be doing that, but later on we may relax that assumption. So when we solve, there is a possibility that you can save this case as a scenario. So we are saving this case as case 2 in the scenario manager. Case 1 will be our equally weighted portfolio. Now we solve and then the weights are changed. The Asia Pacific green is getting the lowest weight, whereas US green is receiving the highest weight and EU green is getting the average weight. So this is the portfolio risk and portfolio return associated with the minimum variance portfolio. So this is the minimum risk of the portfolio that is attainable for any level of return. So this case will also be saved just like the previous case. So that is our case 1, the case for the equally weighted portfolio with the corresponding risk and the return. Now the second case is saved as case 2, which shows the portfolio risk and return from the minimum variance portfolio. Now we shall be considering 2 other portfolios. The first one will be minimizing risk for a given level of return, and the second one will be maximizing return for a given level of risk. So now we choose weights to minimize the risk for a given level of return. We assume that this given level of return is nothing but the return of the equally weighted portfolio. So this portfolio minimizes risk so as to give a return which is equal to the return of the equally weighted portfolio. So now we are minimizing risk using the solver. The weights are changed. These are our choice variable. The constant that sum of all the weights will be 1 is there, and there will be another additional constant which says that portfolio return will be equal to the given return, which is nothing but the equally weighted portfolio's return. So we have these two constants here. Once again, we are allowing for short selling. We save this case under Scenario Manager. We give it the name case 3. Then we solve. So these are the weights that we get, and portfolio risk and return. So now we see that the UG is getting the highest weight, USG is getting the second highest, whereas Asia Pacific Green is getting a negative weight. So disinvestment in Asia Pacific Green. Now this is the case since we are not banning the short selling. So if we put a ban on short selling, then we shall not be getting the negative weights. Instead, we shall be getting a 0 weight. So now we are saving this case as case 3. So this is the portfolio which shows the minimum risk subject to the constant that it gives return of the equally weighted portfolio. Now we shall be coming to the fourth and the last case. So that now we shall be maximizing the return of a portfolio given that the risk is at a particular level. So once again we assume that the risk is fixed at the level given by the equally weighted portfolio. So that is our problem. We use the solver once again. So now we are maximizing the return. So our target sale is that we are maximizing it, changing the weight sales. Now the constraints will be changing. The first constraint will always be there. It says that sum of all the weights should be equal to 1. And the second constraint says that the risk is equal to the given risk, which is equal to the equally portfolio risk. So now we are not putting any ban on short selling. We are saving it as case 4 under the Scenario Manager. And then we solve. So weights have been changed. So now the US market once again is getting the highest weight. So that is the case if we do not put any restriction on the short selling. So the portfolio risk and the portfolio returns will be saved as case 4. So now we have all these 4 cases with different risks and the different returns for the portfolios. We can go for a scenario summary then, in order to have all these cases in one particular table. So in the scenario manager we have 3 cases then, 2, 3 and 4. Now we shall be adding the first one, which is the case for the equally weighted portfolio. So the name is case 1 and we shall be changing the weight sales. Now we are changing the values corresponding to the weight sales. Each sale will be exactly equal to 0.33. We are putting the values. So now all the cases have been added in the scenario manager. So we go for the summary. But before that we shall be doing another thing. We shall change these target sales, the names of the target sales, into portfolio risk and portfolio return, because that will help us in interpreting the scenario summary. And these two are the target sales, so we should have the formula here. Now we go back to the scenario manager and go for the scenario summary. We shall be entering these 2 sales as our target sales, and the sales should be separated by the comma. So that is the scenario summary. So it shows the portfolio risk and portfolio return under the 4 cases, and it shows how the risk and return vary from one scenario to other. Now the same thing can be interpreted using a formula or using a diagram. So here the blue line shows the risk and the red line shows the return. This is the risk for the minimum variance portfolio. If we compare the risk and return of the equally weighted portfolio, then we find that the equally weighted portfolio gives the lower return at the same level of risk, and it will be giving us a higher risk at the same level of return. So that is how we construct the portfolios, and we can make a comparison among them. So this diagram helps us to analyze in a bit detail compared to the scenario summary table. Hope the things are clear to you. I'll be back with few more tutorials. Till then, bye. Have a good day.